Welcome back, Yogesh. How are you today?
Hi, Dharini. I am um, curious. Yeah, I think I'm curious and um, I am also noticing that there's one part of the conversation that we had,
Hmm.
and I don't necessarily remember what we spoke about. So I'm like, okay, we should be able to connect the dots, right?
Yeah,
It is one conversation. So
I can
yeah,
fill you up on that.
I'm sure. How are you?
I'm doing well and really looking forward to this conversation of ours.
Hmm.
The last time we spoke, Yogesh, we spoke about moments in your life that shaped you. We spoke about the happy accidents that led to creating game changers.
Right.
And today, I would
Mhm.
love to hear from you about experiments in love.
Right.
The series of workshop that falls, retreat and workshop that falls under experiments
Sure.
in love, starting
Yeah.
with why experiments in love?
Mm. Hmm. Wow. So unlike unlike some other things that have happened, experiments in love, actually there's a very clear chronology. There's a very, there's a linearity to that process. One thing happened after another because it just kind of um um it 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 appeared as a fully formed thing. What I
Mm,
mean by that is that in March 2020, in
mm,
March of 2020, um, a week before the lockdowns started in India, right? A week or 10 days before, um, I was present to an impulse of wanting to raise funds for um, daily wage workers who, even though the lockdown was still a week, 10 days away, had already started experiencing the impact of the pandemic, right? And so there was this impulse to be able to raise funds. So there was this. The second was it was also the first time we were taking some of our work. Until that moment, only the coaching used to happen on Zoom.
mm,
The workshops were always in person, were physical, and there were a number of first principles there that it like when you brought people into a room and when you made them sit with each other, there was a that the the physicality of that experience seemed fundamental until that point,
mm.
right? And so we what in the work that we were doing until that moment, even if some follow-ups, some pre-work before the conversation would happen online, the workshop itself would always happen
In
in
person.
person. So this was the first time, and it was, in that sense, it was an experiment. We said we want to bring one of our workshops, which is a masterclass in storytelling and public speaking.
Mm,
So game changers, for all the work that we were doing until that point, the work that we were known best for was storytelling works, like for business storytelling, brand storytelling, culture storytelling, etc., etc. Uh, so, so we said, let's take one of our workshops. Let's attempt to take one of our workshops, and we divide. So, what was generally a 2-day workshop, of 16 hours was divided into 6 days of 2.5 hours. So Monday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And we said, we're going to announce this and we are going to invite people to simply pay it forward. They need not pay a registration fee.
Mm.
Um, they can come in, and if they enjoy what they see, if they find it engaging and meaningful, they can choose to pay it forward.
Mm.
And it was always meant to be just one workshop. Okay. I remember it so clearly. Um, it was, in fact, that entire session, those 15 hours, because the internet was already getting a bit spotty, at the start of the pandemic. I ran the entire workshop on a hotspot,
Mm.
on a hotspot, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And there were 25 people who'd signed up. Um, and that snowballed into what we now understand as experiments. So it was meant to be one workshop. It was meant to simply help people, daily wage workers, or people at the front line who we knew are going to be impacted by the pandemic. So the people who came into that workshop, um, not only paid forward, which means that not only did they um, financially contribute to the campaigns that were running at that time, the
Mm.
crowdfunding campaigns, they also, without being asked, went and spoke about this workshop to
Mm.
other people that they knew.
Mm.
And so suddenly, one workshop became
Mm.
another.
Mm.
And so this is, we're sitting in March of 2020. Between March of 2020, just to give you the larger arc, and then I can speak to the specifics if you want. So this
Right.
was meant to be one workshop. Between March of 2020 and was it September, October 2021, right? Like an 18-month
Mm.
period. It was meant to
Mm.
be one workshop, but it became an 18-month period in which typically I was facilitating between 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the night. And then after 9 o'clock, we would have a
Wow.
singing and a dancing thing. So I did not experience the pandemic at all.
Mm.
The pandemic
Mm.
was uh, the most creatively fertile period. Like I would be sitting as I'm sitting right now, but I was, of course, living in Bangalore. And we would have, let's say, for instance, on any given day, there would be a storytelling, public speaking block, which will happen between 8 and 10:30. There'd be a half an hour break for breakfast. 11 to 1, there would be either Ikigai or
Mm.
a masterclass in cognitive biases and mental models. There'd be a break for lunch and a bit of a nap. And then we would have between 4 and 6:30 a conversation on learning to live without fear or becoming unfuckwittable. And
Mm.
each of these,
Mm.
until then, all the work as game changers, as part of game changers, all the work that we'd done until that moment in the pandemic is what I like to describe as focused on above your eyebrows,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Um,
And you mean by that,
it-
you mean it's intellectual or
Cognitive, it is
cognitive?
intellectual.
Right.
It is like, it is, just to double click on that briefly. What I mean by that is that we were living upwards of our eyebrows, which means that if you asked most people what they are feeling, they would end up telling you what they were thinking, and
Mm.
nobody would be the wiser,
Mm.
right? Um, like the only thing you cannot say somebody's in the head is that they are in the head, because then they get even more in the
Mhm.
head,
Mhm.
you know, that kind of a thing. Um, And all of these conversational themes, this kind of, moving away from all things cognitive to things that involved movement, things that involved pausing to notice the sensations, things that involved um, um, uh, focusing on the space between two people, the relationality of it all. It just revealed itself. Like for
Mm.
instance, when when we it, when we started announcing the the new workshop themes or the new conversations, I would notice that just the name would arrive in consciousness,
Mm.
just the name, and I wouldn't know what needs to be done there,
Mm.
and what needs to be done also would just reveal itself in the course of that
Mm.
of that workshop. So it was purely something else channeling itself through us,
Mm.
you know. And so over that 18-month period, we ran more than 250 workshops. We raised uh, close to 2 crores in
Fantastic.
crowdfunding interventions. So this was like none of this money was coming into Game Changers. All of this
Right.
money, the team would identify causes that felt under-supported because there was, the first wave of the pandemic, then the
Mm-hmm.
second wave of the pandemic, etc. So it
Right.
kind of went on. So the team would identify causes that were under-supported, and then every week or every fortnight we would refresh.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, for some weeks we were in the pandemic, if you remember, domestic violence had started surging. So
Mm-hmm.
there was a need to to set up violent helplines for
Mm-hmm.
people at the receiving end of domestic violence. And some of that had to be like, like the traditional sources of funding were not available.
Mm-hmm.
So like if somebody would reach out and we would vet it, and if it sounded everything was okay, and then they had to set up a helpline very quickly. So we would that probably would be one of the causes we would support for a few weeks or a few. Another cause that we supported quite extensively was providing education and food and shelter for children of sex workers.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the kind of things that would not get covered in the Prime Minister's Relief
Right.
Fund.
Right.
So began as an experiment, and then because it felt like the energy that was sustaining this was just love. So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of the name was like a
Mm-hmm.
giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how Experiments in Love was birthed. And the first of the retreat, also the first of the retreats, which you then experienced much
Mm-hmm.
later in Seattle, the first of it actually came about, excuse me, when, you know, of there were probably close to 2,000 people, between 1,500 and 2,000 people who'd come into these workshops.
Mm-hmm.
And a percentage of them expressed the desire to meet in person,
Mm-hmm.
to come together. And that's how the impetus or the inspiration to have a retreat. And said, okay, then what is the kind of engagement that is deeper than this?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the retreats came. And then for those people who are all around the world, because there were people in Pakistan, there were people in Canada, like Australia, US,
Mm-hmm.
every Germany, like at some point there were probably people from 30, 35 countries. And they wanted to deepen. So we said, okay, so there are workshops like this, and there are retreats, and for people who cannot travel, we started having what are known as immersions,
Mm-hmm.
which were longer
Mm-hmm.
engagements. These were on, for example, explorations on the anatomy of anger,
Mm-hmm.
or there was a one on listening, thinking, speaking, and writing.
Mm-hmm.
There was one on shame, vulnerability, grief, sexuality, play. So there were different immersions.
Mm-hmm.
So there were workshops, there were immersions, there was retreats, and then of course there was coaching. So these became the four
Mm-hmm.
vehicles
Mm-hmm.
in which the work was kind of happening outside.
So what happens in these workshops now, Yogesh? Like for a, let's say, a 5-day immersion that you've curated, coming from these small series of workshops. Um, what does that look like?
You've been a part of one. Why don't you tell us?
Well, I've shared this with you earlier, both in person
Uh-huh.
and at the introduction of our podcast even.
Right.
Um, I've participated both as the capacity of an organizer,
Right.
and also as a participant. And
Right.
what I found um, during these 5 days are that your exercises bring out unexpected moments of play, unexpected moments through play brings out
Mhm.
unexpected moments of connection,
Right.
intimacy,
Mm.
moments of just delight sometimes.
Mm. Mm.
Um, that that actually took me back to a space of non-thinking sometimes.
Mm. 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 Mm.
So
Yeah.
that was my experience,
Right.
and I would love to hear if if you've seen more of these, or what reflections did have people given you in these
It's
workshops.
been, thank you, Dharini, for um, choosing to share, a bit for putting some more meat on those bones. Uh, I think some a variation of what you just shared
Mhm,
comes quite often,
mhm,
but of course it is a person who's having their own experience, their own journey. Um, so I'll speak to a little bit about the intention of the space,
mhm,
and then I'll speak to what are some of the experiences that people have shared.
mhm,
Um, and it's quite a wide spectrum, right? So I think the word retreat is now being co-opted, like you were speaking
yes.
about Bali, for example. When today people talk about a retreat in Bali, it is basically green juices, smoothies,
Mhm,
swimming pool,
mhm,
massage,
mhm.
steam,
Spa.
sauna,
Yeah.
spa,
Yeah.
right? And there's a place for it, of
Mhm,
course. Uh, uh, but the word retreat, like you take before any of this conversation, retreat, what retreat? You're like,
mhm,
you're retreating.
mhm. Going back
You're
inwards.
retreating. You're going back.
Mhm,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
mhm,
yeah. So when we say retreat, I mean more in the original move,
mhm,
in the original, invitation of the word. Like it's a retreat. It's taking a step back.
mhm,
And often in corporate and in many other places, even in personal relationships, when we say, I mean, we find it very easy to use the word or the phrase, now let's take a step back, but no one's really taking a step back.
yeah.
We're saying that let's take a step back, but if anything, we're actually kind of coming even in even kind of, we're
Marching
doing the
with
opposite in
bigger
many ways.
force.
We're marching exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're marching with
Yeah.
almost like even bigger blinkers on. Um, and so the intention, so that's one. When you are designing a retreat, when you're designing a conversation, whether
Mm,
online, offline, physical, etc., you have to be very, very mindful of two or three things. You have to be mindful that you are not going for the lowest hanging fruit in the room.
mm,
It cannot be just dopamine. It cannot be about people telling people what they want to hear, because then that re-trauma, then it becomes an echo chamber.
mm,
Right? In the world today, you have like lots of men, lots of women, lots of our friends who are beyond the binary. They are, they have found an audience. And now, because they've found an audience, they have gotten into the business of telling the audience what they want to hear,
mm,
which never challenges their thinking.
Mm.
Or when it does challenge their thinking, when it is meant to challenge their thinking, they do it in a way which feels like a lot of tough love, which is basically talking down to the people. The thing with all of this is it re-traumatizes you.
Mm.
It keeps you wounded,
Mm.
right? Um, and you see this in the world today. Like we've had hundreds of people who come in and who believe that that woundedness is the highest form of intelligence.
Mm.
And it is in the nature of a wound to
Mm.
camouflage itself
Mm.
as a
Mm.
medal.
Mm.
It is in the nature of a scar to camouflage itself as a medal,
Mm.
right? There is an archetype in Jungian psychology of the wounded healer. We are all wounded. But when we begin to look at our wounds, do we keep recycling them? Because
Mm.
recycling your wounds is a very profitable
Mm.
business.
Mm.
Because there are other wounded people in the world,
It keeps it going.
right? When in our spaces, now this is not just restricted to the retreat, right? The idea is we will meet you where you are.
Mm.
Okay. Like, for example, you may be, for instance, deep into your journey of seeing how shame has shaped your expressions. Or you may be in the place where you're actually just in total denial. You're like, what shame? I don't
Mm.
feel any shame.
Mm.
And both perspectives are very welcome and will find breathing space
Mm.
inside this retreat. And the way we do that is we are designing a micro environment where there is a set of invitations always floating around you, which you can choose to engage in the way that you feel organically ready to engage with.
Mm.
Right. And if you remember in the retreat that you were talking about, there were people who bloomed on the fifth day,
Mhm.
and there were people who bloomed in the first 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Right. There were people who were quiet for 4 days.
Mhm.
And then only spoke on the fifth day about what that journey was, because that's the amount of time that it took for them to metabolize, to find their words, etc.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And even when there is something that makes um if there's an invitation, like for example, sometimes we have people stand on the streets and offer hugs, and that
Mm.
can make a lot of people very uncomfortable.
Mm.
Every invitation is held with gentleness,
Mm.
and every invitation is also held where if you're choosing to make your like if you're choosing to expand your appetite for discomfort, then there is enough nervous system support offered so that it does not kind of just go in. Like, so like if
Mm.
we are like the idea is, or the intention is, that if we are opening some things
Mhm.
that have hitherto not been opened,
Mm.
then is their capacity, is their collective capacity to hold that and take it to its logical conclusion.
Mhm.
And which is why the retreats themselves are always limited to a maximum of 16 people.
Mm.
So we know that 16 to 20, up to 16 to 20 people, uh, space can be made for.
Mm.
Not just physical space, but like
Mm.
emotional space, mental space. The cocooning can happen,
Mm. Mm.
right? Through a combination of intentional design, by being very, very, mm, you know, by by having a combination of both structure and fluidity. So you want what is happening in the session, in the conversation, to also breathe fully.
Mm. Mm.
At the same time, you also have an overarching uh, container where when things happen, things can be helped. So it's not that everything, like for example, what happens if this person really has an experience? You're not going to, no, we know exactly what we will do if a person is having an experience which is beyond the ordinary. So
Mm.
there is structure,
Mhm.
and then in the way that people experience it, there's a lot of fluidity. There's a lot of, like, basically how can we get them to get to the flow state without having to use words like, oh, I'm trying to get you to the flow state, because then
mm,
you become very self-conscious,
mm, mm,
right? So
mm,
the way I like saying it is that we will show you the cheese, and then we will feed you the broccoli, which you will not realize that you're being fed the broccoli until you start digesting it, and you're like, oh,
mm,
now I know what it feels like to
mm,
eat broccoli, and
mm,
that's the experience a lot of people have,
mm,
right?
mm,
They come in thinking A, B, C, D, E, F,
mhm,
and then when that felt sense of safety,
mhm,
it just that switch turns on,
mhm,
you know. And I've seen this, like for example, to use the metaphor of a frozen river, a lot of times when people come into the retreats on the first day and the second day, I see them for the first time and I can see that there's a frozen river inside of them.
mm, mm.
Not from the point of view of diagnosing something, but you
Right,
just know that there's something frozen inside them.
right.
And then by day three, day four, you start seeing that something is thawing. And it will not help us one day when if I say, hey, Dharini, I see a frozen river inside you now, let's start thawing. No, no, no.
Mm,
That's
mhm,
amongst other things that is very condescending.
mm,
But to know when you see it, and then you say, okay, so then yeah, so basically, okay, so this person is going to require or need that felt sense of safety in their
mm,
own body to start unpacking.
mm,
And we have to wait,
mm,
right? So I'll pause there. I think so
mm,
that's a little
mm,
bit about,
mm,
or more than a little bit about what
mm,
happens.
mm. So, what does success look like for you after a retreat? Apart from the, testimonials that or the reflections that people give you, what makes you feel this has gone well?
I- It's, I think, mostly singular,
Mm,
um, because the retreat act from the moment they walk in,
mm,
that retreat is done.
mm,
The retreat is not done at the end of the retreat. The
mm,
retreat is done the
mm,
moment people walk in.
mm,
You know, it's like a film.
mm,
The film belongs to the audience the moment it has, like, they start watching it,
mm,
right?
mm,
It's out of, meaning to say
mm,
you're still doing the thing, but it's out of your hands,
mm,
right?
mm,
And so success, I is like three or four things, right? Success is how are the people who are involved in in ensuring everyone's having that experience, how are
mm,
they feeling, how are they responding, how are, you know, the people who are responsible for this experience for other people, how are they, because a lot of times they're you know um we 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 end up overshooting ourselves in many different ways trying to manage
mm,
an experience for
mm,
someone
mm,
else. So I don't know if it's a marker of success, but attention, definitely my
mm,
attention is one of the places where my attention is going, is that how are the people who are managing this experience? How are
mm,
they responding? Um, More about the process itself is the what was the quality of the container,
mm,
right? Like how much stress can the contain, how anti-fragile is the container
mm,
that we are holding,
mm,
right? Um, and I think the final bit is that how 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 much emotional capacity has been generated.
mm,
And so in the context of a retreat, it is that how much more emotional capacity there is to engage with that which is different from what you thought you knew.
Mm,
And how can you hold that
mm,
without getting, without having to, say that, oh, I'm going to reject this, or, I'm going to hold on too tight to what I know. But basically, yeah. So I don't know, like that's what's coming. Like that, what
mm,
is the, again, in a way, it is how how anti-fragile is the container that holds the retreat, and how anti-fragile is your own
mm,
own inner container.
mm, mm. What's bubbling for you in terms of inspiration now, Yogesh?
At a personal level, I want to go back to Latin American dancing. It's been on my mind. I used to do it earlier, and when I was in Barcelona for a few months, I'd
Mm,
gotten deep into it, but now I've again kind of lost touch. So I think that's really calling out. Um, at the personal level, there's the singing that's
mhm,
wanting to be deepened. Um, Language, Spanish language is really calling me. So, you know, like creatively like things that can keep me creatively occupied are very many,
mhm,
right? That's and in terms of how all of this translates into the work, um, over and above what we already have, like which is, immersions, retreats, conversations, coaching. Um, Maybe a physical space. I don't know.
mm,
Maybe a physical space.
mm,
I have been apprehensive about it all this while because I'm on the road a lot,
mm,
and a physical space requires you to. Right? So yeah, that's the the next thing might be to just have a
mm,
physical space, a permanent physical space with these invitations
mm,
that are always there.
mm. That sounds very inviting, the physical space that you speak about. And I truly hope to hear something about it coming from you soon.
I mean,
Okay, so now let's move to some fun questions. I have a fun
okay.
segment where I'll ask you a
Scandalous
few
question.
questions. Not so much scandalous. Maybe we can do that offline, but for now, we'll stick to questions that our viewers can enjoy.
Viewers love scandal.
That they can go to news channels for that, Yogesh. We'll
Okay.
keep this family friendly for now.
Families love scandal.
They find that enough within the families itself.
Therefore, they want to see it outside. Anyway, yeah, go
All
for
right.
it.
Um, okay, so here are the questions. A
Mm.
song you can hum at all times.
All of Jagjit Singh's ghazals, all of Brian Adams. Oh my God.
Give
At
me
all
one. Give me
times.
one.
Yeah. I think, I mean, there are so many that a lot of, like, I think there's one which is a Lucky Ali song. It's one of his lesser known songs, so maybe those who are
Hmm.
watching it are curious can go. It says, नहीं रखता दिल में रखता
Mm-hmm.
हूँ जुबां पर एक ऐसी आदत है मेरी
Mm-hmm.
कह नहीं सकता क्या सहता हूँ छुपा कर एक ऐसी सोबत है मेरी कहने से भी मैं डरता हूँ अपनी ही धुन में रहता हूँ
Mm-hmm.
I think at the time when the song came out, I was in eighth or ninth standard to now 20 years after, 20, 25 years after that, since it's come out. It
Mm-hmm.
still captures nearly everything.
Beautiful.
कहने से भी मैं डरता
डरता हूँ।
हूँ अपनी ही धुन में रहता हूँ, कर क्या सकता हूँ, दे सकता हूँ मैं थोड़ा प्यार यहाँ पर, जितनी हैसियत है मेरी. So that's
Mhm.
all.
Mhm. What makes you do a happy dance, Yogesh?
Just finding humor or depth, like finding an unexpected, it can be like sometimes a word, it can be sometimes I'm listening to somebody and somebody makes a connection. Um, Beauty in all its forms,
Mm.
beauty everywhere, art,
Mm.
architecture, uh, uh, can be in how design thinking, how thoughtfully an ice cream cone has been designed.
Mhm.
Basically, the pursuit of excellence, the
Mm.
pursuit that makes me, yeah,
Mm.
every time,
Mm.
happy time. Touch.
Mhm. A book or website that you would recommend?
The book I've recommended a lot is The Courage to be Disliked.
Mhm.
It's by two Japanese authors.
Mhm.
I mean, also many, many books. There's another one which I really enjoy, which might be, I mean, this one actually more people may know, but this one maybe more people don't know. So, People Watching. There's a book called People Watching.
I see.
Uh, is a fabulous book.
Mhm.
It's a mix of anthropology, evolution, um, science of evolution. It's a
Mhm.
good book. Body language. Yeah, it's People Watching is a good book.
Correct.
Website. I haven't been on it in a while, but the Elephant Journal I used to really like.
Ah, I was subscribed to it too.
Yeah, I
Yes.
love it. Good to know.
And finally, what's
Ah,
the one idea that gets you excited, but you are holding back from treading that path?
ah, um, a lot of times it's actually an easy answer and a difficult one.
Hmm.
Um, um, I see the amount of, and you might have heard me speak to this in the workshop, that the answer to touch that has traumatized us is not no touch, is touch that feels safe and playful and
Hmm.
that can bring back
Hmm.
the joy of touch, the play of touch. And I feel there is a lot of re-traumatizing, unwitting that is happening in the world under the, other than for children,
Hmm.
and if you want to give them a basic understanding, there is no place in the world for good touch and bad touch.
Hmm.
These are artificial fault lines that cause a lot more damage than good. So, like for me, a cuddle party where your own discomfort can be held with tenderness and care, but while you're also still questioning what is it that is not making you want to be touched
Hmm.
by another human being,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
Uh, so where space is made for your own discomfort, but you're
Hmm.
also curious about your own discomfort and wanting to go past
Hmm.
that discomfort.
Hmm.
And 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 essentially just working with touch. Is there a is there a place where touch uh, that is wanting to come about organically, can that happen without the ideas of power, or the um like, can we get to a place where we are in touch with our humanity and the humanity of the other, when where touch is concerned? Like, I'll
Mm.
end with this one absolutely brilliant experiment that illuminates on what I'm trying to get at, and may or may not have landed fully, is that this is called deviance in the dark. It was an experiment that was carried out at Stanford in the 1950s, in the 1960s, right into the 1970s.
Mhm.
When people were invited, people who did not know each other were invited. And if 20 people were invited, 10 people were put in one room and 10 people were put in another room. In one room, there was only one difference between the two rooms. You know what? One room had light
Mm.
and the other room did not have light. That was the
Mm.
only difference.
Mm.
In the room that there was light,
Mm.
people spoke about the weather, people
Mm.
spoke about politics, people spoke about like all, how
Mm.
touch me not kind of.
Mm.
And in the room that there was no light,
Mm.
people wanted to be hugged.
Mm.
People wanted to feel the touch on their skin. People wanted to touch somebody else.
Mm. Mm.
These were the same people.
Mm.
When you took away light, something inside them felt
Mm.
safer.
Mm.
And that tells me that we've got a lot of this wrong.
Mm.
So anyway, I feel there's an exploration there that it's not.
Well, on that note, Yogesh,
On that touchy note,
on
yeah.
that touchy note, thank you for that. I'm going to sign off from the podcast, and I just want to say it's been a fantastic conversation with you. Thank you so much for this.
Of course. You're very welcome.
Thank you.